Right, I've kept you waiting long enough. The new Volvo replacement has finally landed and is about to be given a good clean, so let's check out my new car and hopefully the channel's new star. This pearlescent white Nissan 370Z Nismo Yo. So within an hour or so of selling the C30, I was on the blower putting a deposit down on this beast as I've been quietly stalking them online and off for a fair few months, and this was possibly one of, if not the lowest mile used facelift Nismo 370s for sale in the country at the time, so had to snap it up. The car itself is a one-owner 2017 model that's clocked a grand total of 2,500 miles in its short life, so is basically still brand new. The combination of its somewhat exotic Jap styling and the new poser plate ensures it turns plenty of heads, but thankfully its looks are backed up by a Nismo-tuned 350 brake naturally aspirated 3.7 litre V6, which packs a nice punch and drives the meaty rear wheels in analogue fashion through a notchy 6-speed manual box. To help distinguish it from a standard 370, Nissan have emblazoned it with Nismo badges inside and out, fitted it with a pair of supportive but comfy Recaro bucket seats, equipped it with uprated although unfortunately non-adjustable Nismo suspension, bolted on the biggest Akebono brakes they offer for the car, which stop the aggressive looking 19-inch forged raised wheels with ease, and even added Yamaha front and rear chassis dampers to let you know it wants more than to be driven to the shops and back. Now, I don't want to give too much of the car away right off the bat, as there's things I need to try and save for future videos, so today was just about giving it its first exterior clean on camera, and although it wasn't filthy, it had accumulated enough superficial dirt to justify a multi-stage spruce up. To complement the Japanese car, I'd brought along some suitably Far Eastern products from Soft 99, including a shampoo, iron remover, spray wax and a few other bits and bobs in between. As I usually do then, I got to work on the wheels first, but not before the arches had been given a good going over with some citrus degreaser, a pressure washer, some all-purpose cleaner and an easy detailed bog brush to strip back whatever cack was on the arch liners and prepare them for a spritz of water-based dressing later on. After being pre-rinsed in a similar fashion, the wheels were also treated to an all-purpose cleaner before being worked over inside and out with a handful of different brushes to thoroughly but gently remove the light to moderate amount of brake dust sitting on their surface. A soft 99 wheel mitt was used to access the backsides of the spokes, and while it wasn't quite plush enough for my liking, I think its low profile is intended to allow you to get your hand in between the barrel and the brake disc, so could possibly be an alternative to a brush like this easy detail item. Once cleaned and thoroughly rinsed off one by one then, the brake discs were treated to a corrosion inhibitor from Bilt Hamber to try and fend off the frustrating surface rust that can lead to unsightly orange dust all over your freshly cleaned wheels. It was lightly sprayed over the discs at the recommended 5% with water mix, and while you generally do this following the final rinse, I knew that although there was more rinsing to come, if I didn't do them now they'd have plenty of time to turn rusty what with the stop-start filming, so decided to jump the gun. It was then time to snow foam the car for the first time with a thick layer of soap to start to gently pull the dirt out from its similarly coloured jab cracks and crevices. While soaking, it was gently worked into a few areas with a super soft brush, and while you should only really make contact with the car's paintwork once you've performed at least a thorough pre-rinse, this was my car. It wasn't that dirty, had yet to be polished, and I didn't plan to perform a dedicated agitation following the pre-rinse, so grab these shots for your viewing pleasure instead. Before thoroughly rinsing the snow foam suds off the car to reveal some slightly cleaner body parts. I then decided to chemically decontaminate the car using Soft 99's Iron Terminator, which I'd never tried before, but these products are all pretty much the same in my experience, so knew roughly what to expect. The potent product was sprayed over the car a section at a time and closely monitored while it reacted on the surface to prevent it from drying in the sun. Now, while you generally chemically decontaminate after a contact wash to ensure the chemical's efficacy isn't hampered by a barrier of dirt, these panels were pretty clean following the pre-foam and rinse, plus it was safer in my eyes to do now, knowing the subsequent contact wash would help to neutralise any lingering chemical residue, of which there'll always be some. Although the car didn't look to be contaminated with iron, there was still some noticeable bleeding following application, so I'd guess, considering its age, had probably never been treated to such a chemical before. It was then time for a 2-bucket wash with my trusty old black ones I know you love so much, using Soft 99's creamy liquid shampoo, which won't stain paintwork if accidentally left to dry, to be used at least in part with Soft 99's smooth egg sponge. Now, while the prospect of using a sponge might send you into swirl meltdown, a super soft quality item like this, provided it's not excessively scrubbed over the surface, could actually be better for your paintwork than a manky old wash mitt. I ran the smooth egg sponge over a few of the more open panels to get a general feel for it, and while it cleaned these parts just fine and is likely one of the best in the business if you want to stay true to sponge jockeydom, there's still nothing like a good wash mitt for accessing the intricate areas a sponge would struggle to. Also, a mitt works better with the 2-bucket technique, as any dirt trapped by its fibres can be more readily released in the rinse bucket as opposed to potentially being trapped in the pores of the sponge, but still it was fun to wash the new car with both. Once I'd finished washing with both the soft egg sponge and microfibre mitt, I rinsed the car down one last time to remove as much of the remaining cleaning product residue from the paintwork as possible prior to drying it off, which is always a bit of a race against time in this weather. Before any drying took place though, the wheel arches were spritzed with a water-based dressing to condition their plastic liners. And the reason I do this while the car's still wet is so that any product overspray can then be simultaneously wiped off the surrounding paintwork when drying it. Once the arches had been suitably spritzed, the car was then towel dried with a nice plush microfibre, as the paintwork didn't have enough protection to be properly blow dried. Plus, I generally prefer to wipe a towel over the surface when I've been washing and rinsing in the sun, as I find this can combat the dreaded water spotting somewhat. So plodded on with the blue towel until all areas of the 370 had been thoroughly seen to with it. Any residual water was also soaked up from the chunky white shuts with a more generic towel, as they were sporting a bit of dirt earlier, and there would inevitably be some chemical residue from the process still trapped in there that could potentially leak out and stain the exterior, so a decent shut wipe is always a smart idea. Lastly, the wheels were quickly blow dried to remove any trapped water from their recesses and prevent having to draw a towel over them, as being dark I'm guessing they'll show scratches and swirls quite easily, so the less contact made with them the better. Bodywork and wheels dried off then, it was time to dress the tyres using this Giraedge contraption, which is designed to follow the contours of the tyre and rejuvenate it while keeping your hands clean. Now, I'm usually a bit dubious of gimmicky designs like these, but to be fair, it actually seemed to work quite well. Took no more or less time than a tyre dressing sponge or brush and left a deep glossy finish, which despite much of it being buffed away afterwards, still gave the impression it might last a while. The penultimate part of the Nismobile neaten up then was a spray wax treatment using some of Soft 99's luxury liquid gloss. While my go-to for this type of thing is usually Koch Chemie finish spray exterior, I thought I'd give this a go, and while it won't break down stubborn water spots like the FSE, it'll certainly win you over with its amazing mango scent. It was generously sprayed over the surface a section at a time via the very nice trigger spray which the Iron Terminator product used earlier also features, before being spread over it with one towel, left to dry, then buffed off with another to remove any residue and leave a nice slick finish that really helped the pearlescent storm white paintwork pop. The wax does offer some filling capabilities, and while I couldn't see many swirls, temporarily masking marks until you have the time to properly attack your car with something abrasive is always a bonus. Lack of swirls or not, I spray waxed as much of it as I could in the sun, even working over a few details to give them some temporary protection, before finishing up with a spritz, wipe and buff of the new plate so everyone could see it shining from a mile off. Last on the agenda then was an exterior glass clean using some Japanese gel, which again would be a first for me. A thicker product did make sense though, as I prefer to spray glass cleaners directly onto the surface instead of onto a towel first, which means you have to be quick to buff it off before it drips onto the surrounding panels. But with this product you can spritz directly onto a vertical glass surface and leave it sitting there while you faff with your towels, keeping the surrounding parts that have already been dealt with free from cross-contamination. I probably should have tried it with a more plush towel as well to see if that fared any better than the generic items I tend to use, but perhaps I'll save that for the inside of the glass when I get around to filming an interior clean. For now though, this exterior one would have to do, as I'd spent a good 8 hours in the sun, so with a suitably burned neck went about capturing some parting shots to show what it should have looked like upon collection. So although it wasn't too dirty to begin with, it was now popping nicely in the sun thanks to the clean, and I'm definitely looking forward to further decontaminating, polishing and properly protecting it to get the most out of its pearlescentness. While this wasn't supposed to be a dedicated Soft 99 brand review, I thought it made sense to incorporate some of the products to add a bit of authenticity instead of going with the same ones I usually feature. But they seem to do the job just fine, and I'll certainly be using a few of them on the Nismo again. Big thanks to all those who've patiently waited for this video while I flogged the Volvo and got it sorted. Selling cars privately can be a ball ache at the best of times, but I held out for the right buyer and thankfully proved the plonkers on here that were urging me to give it away for far less than it was worth wrong. Let me know what you think of the new edition. If you see me out and about in it, be sure to give me a flash, especially if you have a nice pair of headlamps, and I'll see you next time.